also have let's say like a B2C. Some of the principles that I'll be talking about you can also apply in your business. If you don't know my name is Sydney Sino. The channel is called SOS Studios. Subscribe on my YouTube channel at Sydney Sino. So let's just get into it. So today, the gist of it, started from is getting video work, or just any type of business, be it let's say here in Africa, is one of the biggest challenge, because one of the key things that most of the people face is that we don't have a stable economy. What people get is usually hand to mouth. So you get for most businesses, and for those who are going, let's say, into consultancies, or those guys who are just have their own brands. There are guys who, let's say, they just let's say offering, let's say, just let's say like third party services. Are you an let's say like an influencer? Are you also, let's say, a guy who just, let's say, is selling his website? So I know the most common ways is just guys talk about networking, but what does networking mean in this new age, especially here in Africa? How can you get contacts? How can you get clients in whatever industry that you are? So let's say I'll give an example. Start off with where I am in terms of let's say you're into doing let's say something like events, or you're selling a software. So what is the first thing that let's say if you are in Africa, you should know who the players are in your industry, who the key players are in your industry, and also profile them. So let's say I have a software and I want to sell to companies. Who should I be targeting? So if it is a software, I know that the guy that I'll be targeting should be obviously let's say corporates, and let's say it can also be small businesses. It depends with what your product is touching on, and also what specific need is it solving, and also in terms of what also the margin of the product, in terms of what is the price of the product. The price of the product is and your profit will mostly determine what you will charge at the end of the day. So in terms of when you're also somebody who's going to the market and you're also trying to price your product, the common mistakes I see, or rather one of them, I'll talk about just one mistake before I just segue back into what I was talking about, is that us as let's say consultants, we don't think about who who am I going to sell to, who am I also sustaining it also with, in terms of also when I feel that Africans, we also just price products in terms of, will this pricing sustain me? We don't as a consultant, you don't or as a businessman, or as somebody who's selling a service or a product into the market, people don't think about staffing, or where will my rent come from. Rent not in terms of just where I'm living, but renting in also in terms of where will my business be, in terms of if a customer wants to locate me, where can he find me. So all those aspects are an example of what you should also consider when you also pricing the product. But pricing the product, that will be a different topic. But here I'll be talking about just how to just cover that in terms of firstly how to get clients. So okay, I'll give an example what I usually do for just for starters. So let's say I'm doing events, and I'm providing a particular service for events, and I know that events, in terms of corporates hold events, I know also individuals hold events, and also beyond just individuals, where are these individuals that the guys who can buy? So if I'm, let's say, targeting a corporate client, or corporate clients are my target space or my niche, in terms of when I'm going to organizations, who are the people that handle these budgets in terms of if it is events? So you find mostly, if it is mostly, okay, I'll give here in Kenya, most of the people that handle or do events or handle event budgets will be the marketing managers and also the PR managers. And also, if it is not it is not those huge organizations, you'll also find that in smaller organizations, it is either the CEO or the managing director who is the main one, who is also concerned in regards to holding this budget. So firstly, as an event manager, map out, or as an event provider or as a service provider in terms of events, I should know, map out who the marketing managers are in my market, who are the PR managers in my market. So in terms of a tool, in terms of once you've gotten your client base, you've known that let's say I want to target, let's say, a specific bank. I'll say an example will be, let's say, something like, let's say, NCBA and NCBA. I should know, okay, who's the marketing manager there, who is also the assistant marketing manager there, and also in terms of the contacts, where can I also get these contacts? So I find that okay, in Africa, if you're doing business, especially if you're just like, I know most of the guys are new or are not, if you're just not known or you're just starting out, so you might send an email, but an email is not an effective way of getting yourself, let's say, or landing yourself a business, because at the end of the day, here in Africa, most guys don't trust. They might read your email, but they never hire you on an email. So a key thing to consider or to note down if you're writing notes, people will never hire you on an email. So always, even if you're writing an email, the most important thing is to make a visit, so that you can have a face-to-face conversation, or just book an appointment with, let's say, is it a marketing manager that you want, a PR manager that you want to see? If this is a case scenario of somebody who's doing events, and you've already known that these guys are doing events. For most organizations, or some organizations, I know that they put out tenders, and they just they have what they, in terms of after they've vetted the guys who are going to be provide those tender services, that's where they get the guys who will provide services to them. So you might get that if you are not able to get through the door through that one way, if I'm a client, what else? If I'm doing, let's say, I'm still doing events, how can I also get, if I'm not able to get events, let's say through the tender process, and I'm late, let's say, to the tender process? The second way is through let's say these agencies, because you get like the bulk of corporates, they let's say outsource most of their work, let's say mostly if it is events, to agencies to handle that. Because if you're looking at the agencies will handle things like publicity, marketing, events. So there's also always a budget that will be used for these events, which is allocated to these agencies. So you'll get that even if you've gone and you've tried to apply to get these types of jobs, some organizations, if mostly the big ones, you'll not get that work, even if you can do it. So the second thing is also to, let's say, network with agencies. Know who the agency heads are, and also know who the, in terms of also the who the directors or who the guys that handle budgets in these agencies are. This is if I'm doing events. I'll give another example. If I'm selling a software, and let's say this software will affect something. Let's say I'm selling a product that will affect, let's say, something like customer data analytics. So in terms of customer data analytics, you know that it's a software that mostly affects marketing, because with marketing they'll want to come up with key insights that inform their demographic, know their reach, know who the customers are, and also this will also inform their short-term strategy and long-term strategy in terms of spending their money. Where will the money be put into in terms of resources, in terms of, is this the best effective marketing effort that we can get our money through this. So if your software is something that does something in regards to that, this is just an example, it does something that aligns to that. I know that marketing is the key stakeholder that will make a decision regarding this software. If it is let's say a product that affects security, in terms of I'm doing CCTV controls, let's say I'm doing CCTV cameras, access controls, and such something of the sort, or something that will just help the organization in terms of security, I should also know who the heads of security are. Also in terms of also doing, if is it a new product in the market, is it something that will improve something that they already existing technologies. So even if the first thing is after you've done your research, know who the contact person inside the organization will be. So in terms of you might ask, how will I know who the contact person inside the organization is? Google is your friend these days. There are various tools that you can use, social media. So if you go to social media, I'll give an example. You can, let's say, type let's say on the search bar, if it is Twitter, you can let's say search in terms of who is the marketing manager, who is the IT manager of such and such a company, and it will the search results will just proliferate and give you who the in terms of what the news, what guys have been reporting. You'll get a filter of who you're going to get in terms of who is the head of that department, who who informs, or who is the decision maker. So if you already know, the key thing is knowing who the decision maker is in this process, because you're just using the Google or social media in terms of filtering to find out who the decision maker is. So let's say if you're not nearer to where the decision maker is, in terms of where if let's say I'm just a young guy and I'm starting out, I don't have the budget to, let's say, have fare or go make a personal visit at a specific time. But personal visits are still the most effective in Africa. If you're going to secure any job, trust me, in Africa you can't do it over a phone call or over an email. The phone call is key, but the face-to-face is what will put you, let's say, because trust is something that according to my experience and from my experience, I've found that people won't trust you out of a phone call, out of an email. So never rely on an email. Use phone calls as much as possible, which is something I'll build onto. But as I was saying, once you've already identified who your client, the decision maker in the organization is, how do you also get their contacts? So there are specific tools. LinkedIn is a great networker of contacts if you're trying to get also contacts in regards to your field. So LinkedIn is one of the key areas if you're looking for business, and if you have a product and if you have a service and you need to network with key decision makers, LinkedIn is where you'll get them. I find most of the guys, the younger generation, they won't prefer LinkedIn as a platform, maybe because it's not let's say in their forte, or it's not really their piece of cake, because what they'll be rather be doing is let's say using Instagram, using Facebook. But you get that with Facebook and Instagram, it's really hard to get the contacts of these people. So if LinkedIn is one of the major areas of, if in Africa, for me, how according to my experience, you should use as a tool. So apart from LinkedIn, there are also other paid tools, which let's say I'll give an example. There's one called Lash, LASH. So this is a tool that usually it's also that gives contact information of people that are on the web, in terms of if you're looking for let's say an example of any decision maker and it is in their contact list, you can get it from there. Another great tool is also Zoom Info. So they also have let's say Zoom Info is also great, because once you've logged onto it, it gives you the data for a specific number. Let's say it's free for a certain number of contacts that you'll get, and then afterwards you'll have to pay for the contacts. So as somebody who's starting, you can use Zoom Info, which is something a good tool that I recommend. Use Lash, and if it is something that will also build your business, because contacts equals contracts. So if you're also building let's say to getting clients, try as much as possible to get their phone numbers. After you've gotten their phone numbers, make the follow-up calls, because the calling is one of the aspects in terms of getting you out of obscurity. If somebody doesn't know you, he can't trust you, he won't give you business. So the phone call is just a way to introduce yourself. After the phone call is now where you should make the follow-up visits. So in terms of having your, if it is a B2B, I get that if you're not selling some things like this is the aspects, like mostly you're not selling fast moving goods like makeup and stuff, of which I still feel things like makeup, if you are not an established brand, you'll still have to make those phone calls. Even if I have my makeup brand, I'm selling beauty products, and I want to get my products into, let's say, a certain retailer, I'll still have to make cold calls. So to those decision makers in those organizations, I'll still have to know in terms of who is in charge of product category, who is also in charge of inbounding let's say products, and you still have to do a follow-up visits. So use the phone as much as possible, get contacts, and also know who the decision makers is. If it is something that you can take out of this video today, is know who the decision maker is, make that phone call, and follow up with a face-to-face visit, in terms of let's say putting you out of obscurity and trying to also get your product to market, or trying to get your product in terms of to your clientele, who can be either be businesses. So this is just one of the aspects of building relationships in Africa, because in Africa, most of the client work, or how you also build your brand, is also through guys knowing who you are. So there are a lot of business guys get their businesses through different aspects, but this is just a case example. Let me also know, let's say from you guys, from your what are the avenues that you guys use in terms of getting clients? Is there any specific way? I know for different industries, the different guys use different tactics. Social media, in terms of doing promoted ads, is one of the ways that guys get to pulling traffic to their businesses. But if you're not really, let's say, like an established brand, you don't have the money for advertising, for monthly advertising, you have a product, one of the best ways to do this is usually just a phone call, face-to-face visit, because you need the thing that you're doing with a phone call and a face-to-face visit, or establishing a visit, is really building that trust. So in terms, I can give an example of let's say one of just a key thing that, okay, from my experience I've got into the market. I found that really in Nairobi is really one of the hardest towns or places to get to decision makers. Let's say for most key organizations, it's really hard to get beyond let's say, is it the receptionist, or is it the guys that handle the schedule of the top decision makers? So if you're not able to do that, using tools like Zoom Info, Lash are great products to help you get to that decision makers and help you, put you in front of him and put your product also. Is it, if it has value, it's also one of the key things, one of the tools to use. So as I was saying, outside Nairobi, I found that it's really easier to get to decision makers and also pitch your product. But in Nairobi, I think it's also just that most of the times, or in Nairobi, I feel that most of the top decision makers, they get a lot of sales calls. They get a lot of they're usually bombarded by guys who are salesmen. So they usually have let's say, is it a receptionist or somebody who usually, let's say, will ask you, have you booked an appointment? Do you have an appointment? So this is it's there in the market, something that you won't miss, but it is a wall that you can still climb. So the other aspect in terms of also putting your business into the limelight is also in terms of you also communicating, in terms of having a social media presence around your brand. So building also a social media presence around your brand is also one of the key aspects that you can do to put you out of obscurity and have people also talk to you about your business. So if you have a brand, why don't you talk about what you do about your brand on a day-to-day basis? How do you what are the nitty-gritties in terms of aspects that goes behind your business, in terms of let's say day-to-day operations? Can you make it into a video in terms of getting clients behind the scenes? Because even if I'm a lawyer and I still want clients, I've never seen a lawyer that does a vlog or does something that talks about his business. So just think about also putting using video for your business, in terms of putting you out of obscurity, because video also helps you build trust into the market. But this is something I'll touch on the next time. So cheers, and see you on the next one. And just in case, if you guys want video for your business, if you have a business that you want ads to be done in terms of advertisement videos, you can contact me on the number below. If you guys want to see my work, go to my website. It's at https sosnetworks.co.ke, or just type in sosnetworks.co.ke and just have a look at what we've been done. We've been privileged to at least do major work and do with across many industries and touch many businesses in terms of also events, and also just doing promoted videos, interviews about their businesses, what they do. And this one also build into a sales pipeline, because once you've built a funnel, what we are talking about is just building a sales funnel, because video acts as a sales funnel in terms of putting people into knowing what your product is, who you are, and then that sales, once they gather that interest, it can be also a sales funnel. So video is just a good sales funnel, because right now guys like content. So content and video is just one way to create and build leads towards your business. So that has been me for the day. That's Sydney from SOS Studios. If you want also the t-shirts, we also have t-shirts on our website. You can also call the number for the t-shirts at SOS Studios. And cheers, and see you on the next one. Bye.